Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever episode of the YPCC podcast. My name is Abby Dryth. I have been a member since 2024. And for our inaugural episode, we obviously need a patient zero. And who better than to have Matthew Moquin-Lee, artistic director, who manages literally everything here.
Thank you for having me, Abby.
Of course. We are going to be doing, kind of like a spotlight on your sort of artistry and how it relates to the Young Professionals Choral Collective. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off. I want to know your lore. I need to know your lore, but kind of just like as an icebreaker, what is like a really weird fun fact about yourself?
Actually went to mortuary school and was a funeral director for 7 years. I started when I was in high school.
What if I told you that was like something I seriously consider doing?
Oh my gosh, I can tell you all about it. People would just be dying to see you.
Literally and figuratively. No, that's really cool. So like, when was that?
Oh my goodness. So grew up in a very small town and I played piano and sang for a lot of funerals. And there was one week where I did like 3 in 1 week. And I said, you might as well just put me on the payroll. And they said, well, do you like to work? And I said, well, yeah. He said, well, I'm on call this weekend, and if we need you, I'll give you a call. And then at about 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, I got my first call, and the rest is history.
People be dying. People be dying. No, I remember one of my mom's closest friends, she's an organist, and she talks about like the stark contrast between playing for a wedding versus playing for a funeral.
Aren't they the same?
I mean, there's like, I don't know.
Depends on who you ask, right?
That is true. That is true. But she talked about like after performing at a wedding, people would always have this weird nitpick, like, this is the wrong hymn that you chose to play for the wedding or things like that. But at a funeral, everyone's like, oh, they would have loved it. They would have really loved you doing this piece for them. They specifically requested it. It was beautiful. Always that sort of like gratefulness that I do see in a lot of like funeral related stuff, which is funny because we are coming up on our spring cycle here. First off, we're doing Brahms Requiem March 7th and 8th, and then March 23rd, we're doing Mozart's Requiem. So could you kind of tell me, I guess, before we get more into your lore, your sort of connection with Requiem choral music compared to others? Like what stands out to you Requiem wise as compared to standard choral music that we rehearse?
Yeah, of course. For such a long time, the Requiem was just part of the choral canon as for practical use, right? It was used actually for services and masses. And, of course, Requiem means Mass of the Dead. And then it was the change, in history where the focus began to really highlight the programmatic themes within the Requiem, and you start seeing more programmatic, like the Verdi's Requiem, etc. But then sort of the rite of passage, if you will, learning and singing things like the Mozart's Requiem. And I was thinking about, the theme of the entire season is voices raised and about how we are raising our voices and uplifting each other's voices. But first, in order to do that, is that you need a community. And in my thought process, I said, okay, what are some pieces or what is a piece that most people know or have sang or have at least experienced through their high school and college years, etc. And side note, I have been asked several times about when are we going to do a major work? And so I was sort of thinking of those same things at the same time. And I said, I got it. It has to be Mozart's Requiem.
There you go.
And I firmly believe that in this time is what aided in the success of this particular concert.
I was going to say, I remember reading about Mozart's Requiem. When I was a kid, I was really weird, as one is. And I remember this it was like one book at the time, but they started to have more books called How They Croaked. So it was historical figures and, the time leading up to their death. And Mozart in particular, he was commissioned to write the Requiem shortly before his death. And, at first he was like, oh, this is just a standard commission for a nobleman, I presume, and I'm just going to go ahead and write it. But as he was writing it, he got more sick. And then at some point, he kind of thought about, maybe I'm writing this Requiem for myself, which is a very stark contrast to the Brahms Requiem that we're performing or we've already performed, where Brahms, his whole thing with the Requiem is that, first off, it doesn't even follow the mass text. But secondly, he kind of writes it as a requiem for the living. So can you kind of like talk about why these two in particular and the sort of contrasts that you personally see between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Abby, you're exactly right in that Brahms wrote the Ein Deutsches Requiem. So, when Brahms was writing this, he had suffered profound loss in his life, and he was not a particularly religious person. And I believe I read where it really wouldn't be a requiem, or he wouldn't have included any of the gospel scriptures if he could have without making it a requiem, so
Yeah.
he had to include that to become a sort of this requiem thing. And so the text that he used was really an interesting choice because he focused on the people that are living. He focused on community. He focused on the way of comforting each other and being that sort of companion for each other for those that are that are experiencing grief and loss. And that again needs community. And you have to bring your community together so that you can provide that comfort. Now, the other side of that is you have Mozart's Requiem, which is pretty strict in terms of it's for the dead. And so what makes this particularly interesting is what I mentioned previously of, many people have heard of Mozart's Requiem. Many people have performed or experienced Mozart's Requiem in some way, and they all love it.
Yeah.
And all these people have something in common when they do it. And it's coming together and it's learning the difficult passages. It's celebrating the fun fugues that are involved. And it's having all of those present. And really, they couldn't be more opposite, but they all derive from the same thing, community.
Yeah. No, honestly, I really get that. Because with Mozart, it's gathering for the dead, and with Brahms, is kind of gathering for the living, which I find that to be almost kind of peaceful in a sense. With a lot of the things that have been happening in the world as of late, many people talk about more positive circles, and that's a good thing. I do truly think that creating positive community is a very good thing when it comes to these very difficult times. But I think also having that sort of outlet of being able to have those somber and those peaceful and those tranquil moments of singing this type of music, it's honestly been very helpful, not only for me, but I presume for other people who are performing either or both of these requiems. Do you kind of feel that as well?
I do. I was very close to my grandparents, and I feel particularly drawn to Brahms's Requiem because I'm able to continue processing through a bit of that, processing through grief and loss and what is this emptiness I feel. I use Brahms for that, and then for Mozart, I use the rhythmicism, the harmony, the drive that's behind all of the music to sort of carry out this recognition or this lifting up.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. We gotta get into some Matthew Moquin-Lee lore.
The T.
Yes. Tell me about your formative years.
Well, I actually grew up in Mississippi. And I am the youngest of three. And for the first 10 years of my life, my mother was a single parent, and I was raised by my mother primarily my grandparents. Grew up on a 50-acre farm, 10 miles from the nearest gas station, 1,100
Oh,
people
wow.
in the town, 21 in my graduating class, and I got out.
Wow.
But I'm thankful for that experience because I was totally not born to be a musician. I was born to be a blue-collar, middle-class, working-class, oil-field laborer. That's
Really?
what my entire family was, and to be a sports person.
How'd you get into music?
My grandmother. She saw that I loved music so much. As a kid, she taught me one song on the piano, and I remember exactly to this day how to play that song. And it was, you know, technically so incorrect, but I remember it, and I still play it. I still play it with the same fingering that she taught me. And she said, we've got to get this boy in piano lessons. And I started playing piano, and then I fell in love with music, and then I fell in love with singing. Fast forward, I don't know. I started that when I was 6 years old. Fast forward 30 years, and here I am.
That's really cool. I think, finding that sort of connection. And I guess also something I kind of relate to is I played piano throughout from 6 as well up until high school. One critique that my piano teachers always had for me was the finger placement for each of the pieces. I'm like, if you can hear it and I'm playing it right, then I'm playing it right. But I think it's really sweet that your grandma kind of taught you like an unorthodox way
Yes.
on how to play a particular piece, and that's something that you really resonate with. So yeah, that's honestly really sweet. So going into your music studies, what was that like?
Well, growing up in rural Mississippi, I was very thankful that my formal training actually happened as a part of the church.
Oh.
So my director of music growing up was a director of choral activities at a local university about an hour away, was
Mhm.
there for many, many years. And so by the time I began taking lessons from him, voice lessons particularly, he had retired.
Hmm.
And so it's like I get the full slam of all of music, right? I
Mhm.
was getting conducting and history and theory and singing and all of these things all at once. So it was like my own little conservatory in some ways.
That's awesome.
And it just sort of fed this hungry beast of music that was growing inside of me and my heart, and can't live without
Yeah, I would say I also had a similar, I guess, going more into vocal music was through the church.
it. Mhm.
I was raised Episcopalian. Of course, I was born and raised in Cincinnati. But again, leave it to the church. I sang at Christ Church Cathedral 3 years of high school as like a choral scholar. And some of the music that we learned was extremely difficult. And I'm like, if you can sing at the cathedral, you can sing anywhere. And also kind of having that sort of space to also learn theory, which is really cool. I obviously learned theory at school, but I was able to also kind of go on. And when I kind of like assisted a children's course at one point, I taught what I learned at theory to the kids, which was really fun. So kind of having that pocket conservatory is so cool. So where did you go to for college and higher education?
Sure. So I did my undergraduate at the University of North Texas College of Music. I did that in choral music education.
Mm.
And then taught high school for a while. And then from there, moved to Princeton, New Jersey, where I did my master's at Westminster Choir College in conducting. That provided a world of opportunities of singing with New York Philharmonic, Philadelphia Orchestra. My graduate assistantship was with the Westminster Symphonic Choir, so I got to prepare all these major works for Philadelphia Orchestra and New York Phil and other regional orchestras. And then moved to Cincinnati, where I pursued my doctorate in musical arts and conducting with a focus in arts administration.
That's awesome. Do you have any like particular memories you have during your studies, whether they would be just at university or teaching the high school choirs that you did?
There's always experiences at every level that I feel that I can sort of go back to, right? It's like different chapters of my life. Doing Beethoven 9 with, my first experience with Beethoven 9 at undergraduate in North Texas was an incredible mountaintop experience.
Yeah.
Doing that same thing, and then Mozart's Requiem, and then Messiah, and then also B minor Mass, etc. in New York and Philadelphia Orchestra. That was a mountaintop experience. And then being able to come here and to continue my studies with my mentor from Westminster, and also here at the conservatory here, being able to experience and do those mountaintop experiences.
Yeah. So I guess with this cycle, doing the requiems, it's kind of a callback to doing those grand masterworks. I'm trying to think here. I personally haven't done as many masterworks. Of course, I've done like the standard, like pieces and things like that. I would say probably the first requiem I did was Foray.
Yes, love Fares.
You like Forays?
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have
Oh.
a favorite child?
Oh my gosh. Well, they're all my favorite because I'm doing those at the time, right? There's so much beauty to be found in Fauré's Requiem, and so much beauty to be found in Duruflé's, Verdi, if you want dramatic.
Oh, yeah.
Mozart. There's just a lot of beautiful nuggets or gems that are found in each piece. I think that's what makes my job so easy and fun.
I think what's really funny is I have talked to people about the Brahms Requiem in particular. Of course, my partner, he's singing the solos for the Brahms Requiem March 7th and 8th, and he says that one is his favorite. But I've talked to my sister, who is a student at CCM for composition, and she says that's her least favorite. I kind of gather, like, there have been so many people who have said that Brahms is their absolute favorite. Also, there are some people that say that Brahms is their absolute least favorite. Like, I've never seen, like, a general consensus, which is really weird to me because kind of learning Brahms and kind of going through that, obviously I'm not doing Mozart. I would like to give a massive salute to people who are doing both cycles because that is a lot of work and I seriously commend you guys. I do like Brahms. I don't know if I consider it my favorite just yet, but have you seen like the sort of divisiveness with the Brahms Requiem?
I have. And I think that at surface level, that the reason why many people don't like Brahms Requiem is because they might not feel comfortable with the German language. They might not feel comfortable with where it's going orally or musically. It also may be difficult for them to actually sing or perform. And then lastly, they may not have ever performed it or experienced it in a way.
Which is funny because this is my first time actually doing the Brahms Requiem. I've done pieces in German before, and I actually did learn the German language quite a bit. Unfortunately, I did forget quite a bit of it. But for me, I'm just kind of like, I'm here along for the ride. Have you conducted Brahms Requiem before this?
I've prepared Brahms Requiem. I haven't conducted it.
Okay.
I've prepared Brahms Requiem, and I've conducted excerpts from it, but not from start to finish.
So with that sort of process, how are you feeling about it, especially as we're kind of nearing towards the end of the time of this recording to the performance?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I feel pretty good about it. I always feel better when people know their notes more, but
Working on it, I promise.
I'm sorry, that was just a little dig, but it's like I tell all my choirs, the more comfortable you are with your notes, the better it's all going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
Because that's where music making happens.
This is definitely, this is my first time doing chamber choir. So having to kind of take that extra time outside of choir is not something that I've done in a couple of years. So definitely, it's honestly kind of a breath of fresh air because I've done the previous cycles before where it's non-audition. So people are able to prepare outside if they want to. Or if they're just here to have a good time, they're here to have a good time singing with their peers. But this, you kind of have to take a little bit of extra time and love and hand it to Brahms to really whip me in shape. Have you ever sung Brahms Requiem before in a choir?
Yes, numerous times.
Okay. Do you remember the first time that you did it?
I do, actually. It was a four-hand piano version at University of North Texas.
So it was one piano, four hands?
One piano, four hands. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because we're doing the two piano,
that's
four hands.
Two piano version. So bringing in another concert grand is a heavy lift in itself, but it's a wonderful arrangement of the orchestration because it allows a lot of the orchestral parts to be sort of realized for the piano. And,
rather than having to fight with somebody.
Yeah.
I've played duets before.
It's a struggle.
I remember throughout middle school and high school, we did once a year a duet recital. So I would learn one or two duet pieces. Most of the time, my instructor knew that I was really good at like sort of being a teacher. So I would be secundo. And then, of course, there'd be a younger student who would be primo. I would kind of have to teach them, which is always fun. But I think that the sort of two piano forehand, I think that's going to be really beautiful because then you're also able to, again, add more of the orchestration because you have two sets of keys to work with. I remember also planning logistically yesterday with trying to get the concert piano up there because you have one piano in the main area at First Lutheran, and you talked about how there were like rats and stuff in the piano.
Yes.
Can you tell us that story again?
Yeah, so that piano is a 1913 Baldwin Concert Grand, and it was recovered from a church basement in Cincinnati about 10 years ago. And when it was recovered, they were pulling the excrements of rats and newspapers and food and crayons and
my goodness
all
gracious.
the things that you could imagine were in this piano
Oh
and
my God.
years and years of just stuff. And the local piano technician, who's really fantastic, gave me the opportunity to help with the restoration of this piano. And we took everything out of it and started from the ground up.
That's awesome.
And so it was a total rebuild in the historic way, the Baldwin way. And it has been such a rewarding experience. And every time I look on the inside of the piano or play the piano, I am reminded how thankful I am.
Yeah.
Not just for the experience, but also to be part of a place that's so musically rich.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for your service. Because I can only imagine the type of process that was just
Tedious.
like, I know that it's tedious, but I'm just thinking about all the stuff that's
Yes.
in there. So something that I've noticed with a lot of conductors and choral directors that I've worked with, each of them have that like one pet peeve. The choral director at Christchurch Cathedral, his whole thing was breath marks. You have to have your breath marks. Somebody else, it was rhythm. They would flip the table if the rhythm is still off after going over and over and over and over again. Do you kind of have like a signature pet peeve for your
Yes.
choral direction? That being?
The question, can we hear that?
Really?
That is a pet peeve.
In what way?
No, you can't hear it. Read it or learn your notes.
Yeah, you can hear it when you go through this passage again and you're able to perfect it.
Well,
And then you can.
I'm not quite that nice.
No.
Sometimes I'm too nice. I go, okay, I guess. But it's like, can we just hear that? Can we just hear it? Can we just hear it? Man, that drives me bonkers.
I mean, I can understand maybe like towards the beginning when you're trying to put it together. But if it's towards the end and it's like, can we hear that? I'm like,
It's a lot.
Yeah, I understand.
That will make me flip a table so easily.
Okay, so what would your idea of a personal hell as a choral director be then?
Having questions of, can we hear that written on the wall? No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Always, or like personal hell would be like conducting like a middle school or high school choir where it's like
You can stop there. Middle school. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love my middle high schoolers.
Have you had like an age group that you've preferred conducting?
Wow. I don't know.
That is also like once again asking me like who's your favorite child?
Yeah, we all know you're the favorite child, Abby.
I know. I'm aware.
It's difficult to answer because I really like the sort of young professional crowd
Yeah.
because it's super relatable. I also like the older crowd because they are some of the hardest working individuals.
Yes.
High school now is a little bit difficult to motivate, and college or age is a little difficult to motivate because of the technology era in which we live. Middle school, they're just awkward.
It's so fun though.
But it's fun.
It's fun, yes.
And I like elementary
Yes.
because you can be silly.
Yes. I saw this TikTok recently of a music teacher. She was like, being a music teacher at an elementary school is just teaching your kids to be your background singer.
Yeah.
And she was singing Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush.
Oh
and
my
then she
gosh.
had her kids go like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is it's so funny because my mom's also from the music education background. And it's funny that her strength is very much elementary. She can teach anybody, but she loves teaching the elementary, the preschool kids, the
Yeah.
babies. What is a hot take about current contemporary music that you have?
Current contemporary music is usually driven by some motive, right? Of course, I would dare to say that most compositions have a reason, right?
Yes.
They're either written because they're commissioned or they're written because something has happened.
Yes.
What I think I like about it, these particular works, is that we're living in this together. Terrible things happen and
Yes.
people write music in response. Positive things happen and people write music in response. What I enjoy about it is the fresh take on things.
Yeah.
You start to see more creative approaches to things. For example, the introduction or the involvement of electronics in music or full submersion experiences of lighting or even smells, the aromas. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing how all of the senses are being addressed in the 21st century concert hall.
I agree because, with a lot of the big masterworks or even just smaller works, it is supposed to be kind of an experience or to convey an experience. But with 21st century music, we're kind of leaning into that more and kind of taking the experience aspect and adding more to it. which is something I do greatly respect. I think there are some things with contemporary music. If you want to make a lasting, timeless piece, there needs to be something that somebody's able to recite off in their head, like a little melody that they remember. Not to say anything bad about some of the contemporary music that I've listened to as of late. Nothing wrong with experimenting with different sounds and different dynamics and different rhythms and different chords. I think that's honestly a wonderful place, but I feel like we need to make sure that we like find that balance of that sort of writing music and writing more lyrical, melodical music based off of commissions or things that have happened, but also kind of getting more into experimental work. Has there been any sort of experimental contemporary work that you have looked at or prepared or conducted at?
Yeah, so I would say this is probably during my master's degree. There's a wonderful work by Joby Talbot that was commissioned by Tenebrae. It's called Path of Miracles, and it basically outlines the pilgrimage to, gosh, it's in Spain and Lower France, etc. And we staged it. It's a supposed and it was with the costuming and lighting, and it was incredible. It was challenging because it had to be memorized. And 45 minutes of an a cappella work, completely memorized.
45 minutes straight?
Yes. With lots of, I would say extended technique, but it uses sort of not your typical Western approach. And that sort of was a really transformative experience for me because it allowed me to not only be challenged in a way of performing this, but I felt so connected for something that's been a part of history for so long. And it was reflecting, it was the pilgrimage of where they sort of supposedly took St. James's body after he was beheaded. It's
I've never heard of this.
This Path of Miracles is the Compostela.
That sounds very interesting. So I wanted to ask more with Young Professionals Choral Collective. Of course, we have talked nonstop about our upcoming spring cycle, but I want to kind of get more into like your personal interactions and experiences with Young Professionals Choral Collective as the managing artistic director. From what I could gather, we had a period of time in which we had a rotating guest conductor, and you were actually one of the guest conductors during that time before you came on as the managing artistic director. Unfortunately, I was not there for that cycle, but could you tell me about that cycle and how that was for you?
Yeah, so that was my first interaction with YPCC. It was in fall of 23 or 24. I think it was perhaps 23. And I was asked to put together a program, and our artistic partners were Queen City Cabaret.
That's awesome.
And it was to be performed at Memorial Hall. The concert was called Lune Noir.
Ooh.
And so that was a very interesting experience because I didn't know how YPCC worked in terms of
okay.
in terms of I knew what it was, but I didn't know how it worked. I knew the approach that was taken, but never experienced it, etc. And I fell in love with it. And then when the position became available to apply, I submitted my application and never looked back.
I actually remember being there when we had the candidates, including you, come in to rehearse a piece, and that was really fun because then your fate was in my hands.
I know,
But
right?
But it was honestly really fun to kind of like get to know, because my first cycle was Gala 2024, and that was the last season that they had a guest conductor, which was JMR, John Morris Russell with the Cincinnati
Yes.
Pops, and that was fun. But I never knew YPCC with a managing or a lead artistic director. So kind of like seeing that transformation in real time was honestly really fun because then your first official cycle as managing artistic director was fall 2024, which was, my gosh, I don't think I was there for that one either. I did Gala 2024 and then I did Gala 2025. So what was your like first official cycle as managing artistic director?
My first cycle with YPCC is the official artistic director was in fall of 2024, and it was at SCPA.
My alma mater.
Yes, and it was an incredible experience. That was a lot of fun.
What did you think of?
It was all right. No, of course, it was amazing. I had a good
That answer was incorrect.
Yes, no. It was an incredible experience, and there was a lot of music on that program. I think as a conductor,
Hmm.
especially when you're new to an organization, you do a lot of learning, and you learn how much to program, what not to program, the varying levels of
Hmm.
difficulty, the accessibility of music,
Yeah.
and I think we've gotten a pretty good combination down.
I think also you coming on as the managing artistic director around that time is very interesting because there's also a lot of other local arts organizations that have also instated new artistic directors. For example, this past October, we just saw the debut of Christian Machalaru with Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. So that was his first year. And then with May Festival, it's kind of a first year of after their previous executive director retired. So you're kind of also on that riding on that wave of a lot of transformation happening artistically in the city. What kind of hopes do you have for not only YPCC, but for arts organizations and the arts in general in Cincinnati moving forward?
Well, I think it first goes without saying that Cincinnati is a place that really, really values the arts. And we are never poor we are never poor of art.
Hmm.
What really excites me about Cincinnati and the next chapter of Cincinnati is the excitement and the freshness that's being brought from outside of Cincinnati into Cincinnati for doing innovative, creative, diverse representations of
Hmm.
the art form. So my hope is for those organizations that are currently here in Cincinnati that they fully embrace the uncomfortable,
Yes.
meaning being challenged artistically. And that kind of goes back full circle to one of the quotes from Leonard Bernstein talking about the art form. And he said it so beautifully. He said, "A work of art does not answer questions, it provokes them, and its essential meaning is in the tension between the contradictory answers."
There you go.
So the art form is not the music itself, it's the questions and the
Hmm.
responses that are made in response to.
One thing that I do appreciate with a lot of music, both locally and in general, is the sort of invitation to interpretation. I think with a lot of the music that we've rehearsed this past season, with the fall cycle, the winter cycle, of course, with Brahms and Mozart, there's a lot of room to interpret your own narrative, whether being able to connect what you're singing to your own personal life or what's going on in the world in general. Sort of, I guess, what Leonard Bernstein said with provoking the questions rather than trying to answer them, I find to be a lot more helpful because a lot of the questions that we do have artistically are rhetorical. And I think looking more into that, especially with the Brahms Requiem, even though it is considered like a requiem for the living, you kind of think about who is the living that you're singing to or singing about? Is it something within your personal life? Is it processing your own grief, or is it processing grief of somebody else, or regionally or even locally? Because there's just so many things that happen in the world. And I think with music and the arts in general, having those places where you can interpret and you're given a sort of prompt within the music and in the art to either process or interpret or reflect on what you're personally going through is honestly extremely helpful. And Cincinnati, it's never poor in that. I think Cincinnati's always been rich with history. It's been rich with art. We have one of the oldest orchestras in America. We have the oldest choral festival in the Western Hemisphere. We have a lot of rich, wonderful history. And although YPCC is fairly new, it is ushering in a new age of the arts and of music. Do you have any fun things that you're thinking about either next season or beyond?
Yeah, the first thing is we were a recipient to a grant for a commission, and we have commissioned trans composer Mari Isabel Valverde to commission a piece for YPCC to be premiered at the end of October of this year.
That's awesome.
And I'm really, really excited about that because the it's a original text and it talks about the light and how we are the light. We just need to encourage the light so that we can be the light to others. And I'm really excited by that. I'm also excited about opportunities to sort of spread our wings a bit in terms of performance opportunities, but then also, I being challenged musically. I wouldn't truly find myself being a dedicated conductor if I wasn't caring about the development of the
Mhm.
musician themselves. If we did the same sort of thing all the time,
Yeah.
it would become boring.
Yes.
And so my job is to push us in a way that makes us feel musically uncomfortable, literacy wise, but then also making us question things, in terms of the statements that the music makes, or in terms of how it makes us feel, of building community in that way.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Because one thing I've been really grateful for YPCC is I've been able to do things that I haven't done before. Because my background is so, like, it's strictly, like, church music. Doing the gala every year is always so much fun because then I get to branch more into musical theater, which is something I've never really done before. And even with the fall cycle, this has been the first time that I have done a full year of YPCC. And during those moments and during those rehearsals, I've been able to kind of spread my own wings with the type of music that I perform. And I'm able to kind of learn a lot of very insightful things. So I guess just a last minute for fun questions. What are you watching or what are you listening to right now? Like on Netflix, or like, do you have an artist that you're listening to right now?
Well, I just finished Heated Rivalry,
Amazing.
and
What did
that
you think?
steamy.
Yeah.
It's steamy, and they are not invited to the cottage. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone's invited to the cottage. So, I mean, when I watch TV, I usually watch things that sort of what I call the brain numbers,
Oh, yeah.
where I can just turn on and watch it and not have to really engage, but kind of like see the storyline, right?
Yeah, yeah, no.
So I honestly really can't tell you too much of what I'm watching right now. I also like to watch reruns of, like, for example, I've rewatched recently the entire series of Orange is the New Black.
Well, I think I may have watched the pilot. I have not got into it yet. I did watch Heated Rivalry recently. At first, I'm such a contrarian where I'm like, oh, I'm not like other girls. I'm not going to watch it because everybody's talking about it. But then I did see like the press tour of the actors, the two actors who are so funny. And I'm like, they seem really funny. So I'm going to watch it. And it's a show. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just, there is a lot of content in that show.
For mature
Yeah,
audiences
for mature,
only.
yeah. But I thought it was really cool how the actor for the Russian guy, um, American, by the way, they're like, the cameras were off at one point during one of the scenes where he's in Russia, and there was a grandma or something who was playing an extra who was Russian, tried to come up and speak to him in Russian. He's like, "Oh no, I don't speak Russian." So like this sort of like everybody talked about how his Russian, not only in accent but in language, was extremely good. But Orange is the New Black, I haven't seen it yet. Right now, I'm on West Wing.
Okay.
My partner's got me hooked on West Wing.
West Wing's pretty good.
Just out of all shows, West Wing.
Designated Survivor. You should also watch that too if you like West Wing.
Maybe I will. Do you have an artist that you're listening to right now?
If it's not Mozart or Brahms. No, I love Mumford and Sons, and I have just listened to their new album that they released.
So you like 2010s hipster music like my dad?
Why are you calling me old? No, I'm just kidding.
When I was a kid, I loved Monsters and Men and the Lumineers. I was weird like that. Lately, I would say I've been listening. I feel like Brat Summers Forever,
Okay.
Charlie XCX,
Yes.
Brat Summers Forever.
Yes.
And then what are like some food places that you've been loving as of late? Or like that you've gone to recently and then you're like,
Oh my gosh. A guilty pleasure is White Castle. Don't tell anybody.
oh my God. Okay. Actually, I Ubered here and my Uber driver was talking about White Castle.
Yeah,
We were talking about White
10
Castle.
out of 10, don't recommend.
Yeah. No, White Castle, it's like we used to have one in our neighborhood and it got torn down after like 20 plus years. And
There's
I
a
would say,
reason why.
no, White Castle, literally, it's only good if it's like past midnight.
And you're drunk.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
or hot.
Yes. Yes.
Not
And
that I would
like,
ever.
or you're at a party or you're at a work function and it's very late. There have been a couple of times where like my dad is doing like a work party, but it's like for everybody and it's like past midnight. Somebody goes over to White Castle and gets sliders and chicken rings. And what's your go-to?
I'm hungry. What was your question?
What's your go-to like thing to get?
Oh, the 4 little slider things.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
My parents would do the sliders with jalapenos on. I do the chicken rings with honey mustard.
For good. Oh, that's good. But
Mm.
for good food, I
Mm.
love Soto. You should totally go to Soto.
I've heard really good things
Some
about it.
good Italian. Italian, as my grandmother used to say.
I'm trying to think. Well, a place that's always in my heart is Cafe Mochico up in East Walnut Hill.
Never heard of it.
It's literally like across the street from St. Francis de Sales, where we sang
Oh,
Lux
yeah.
Eterna. It's open from Thursday to Sunday.
Wait, are you advertising for them or YPCC? Which one?
Yes. Well, yes. And they have really good ramen.
Who did?
Really good ramen. They do a Cincinnati ramen. Like they like rotate ramens, but sometimes they do a Cincinnati style ramen. Don't like fully expect it tasting exactly like Skyline. It tastes different, but it's still good, I would say.
Skyline and ramen should never be in the same sentence.
Get prepared to be proven wrong. Get prepared to be proven wrong. Okay, so one last question. Going back into YPCC, what is a piece or some pieces you have on your wish list that you want to perform soon with us?
I often refer to them as my Cincinnati grandparents. Her name was Beverly, and she was the lady that was tragically struck by the Metro bus right up here. And she taught for many, many, many years. She taught gifted kids, and even in her late 80s, she was always challenging people in a positive way. And she always asked me, what are you doing to make a difference? Or how are you making the world a better place? Or what are you contributing? Well, her son is a musician and songwriter, and he has made his career in doing that, but then also he's a music teacher. And he wrote a song using that text that she would always ask, how are you making the world a better place? And this is super, super sneak peek. But I'm taking that piece and I'm arranging it.
My God.
And
that's going to be so cool.
That's going to be a piece that I'm really, really looking forward to. Not because of the message itself, but because
there's a sentimentality to it.
Yeah, I think it's okay for us to be selfish every once in a while.
Yeah.
And that selfishness is hopefully resulting in a message that helping create the world a better place.
That's honestly really cool. And there's a really cool connection to Cincinnati with that. I am really looking forward to that. Do you have like roughly when that might be?
In the fall of 2026.
Ooh, so earlier than we anticipated.
Da-da. Oh, that's Beethoven. Never mind.
Good job. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, Matt, about everything from mortuary school to conducting to, can I hear that again? To heated rivalry. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.